Okay. Um, is this the PowerPoint behind me?
It's going to be in a minute.
Okay, no worries. I guess I'll just kind of give a disclaimer why we get this stuff together. Family, I am a mental pervert. I love to touch it. I love to feel it. I might be intimate with it a little bit, but I'm not married to it. I'm not married to any of it.
What
Some of
exactly are we
y'all,
talking about?
we're talking about the information at hand,
Oh,
or just any information. Um, just because, like, I notice if a person, I had made a post. One, somebody said autism was part of God's plan, and now one out of every 20 babies is autistic. What the hell is God's plan? This girl replies to me, and she's vehement and passionate about her reply, and I can tell. And I say to her, I assume you have an autistic child. She says, yeah. So now she's married to autism. When I cover autism, whether I have an autistic child or not, which I don't, but even if I did, I'm not going to die on this hill. I'm not married, and for the rest of my life, I'm going to study autism. If I talk about Jesus, I'm not married to it. It's interesting. I might go in deep a little bit, fold her ass in half all night, but I'm not married to the topic. Some of y'all out here reading the Bible, you've been reading since you was 7. When you gonna finish that book, family? That's my question.
mm,
I'm not married to it. Is it interesting? Absolutely. Will I cover it? Sure. Am I gonna drink the Kool-Aid and believe this and dedicate my life to it? No, this is not my life's work. I'm an information pervert. I'll touch it, I'll feel it, and we might go deep. But tomorrow I might not be interested in it at all. I'm
makes
not
sense.
dedicated to it. And that's kind of where I stand. I don't want anybody to, oh, this is a Christian channel and he's in love. No, it's interesting, absolutely. It's not something that, you know, I'm not baptizing myself in the name of Jesus. I'm not drinking the wine or eating the bread and doing communion and all of these things. No disrespect to the religion, no disrespect to the characters or the story or anybody for that matter. But I'm just not one of those people who, just because I'm covering a topic or addressing a topic, is because I'm triggered or I'm invested in any type of way. Outside of this being interesting, I'm not really into it.
Makes all the sense in the world. Makes all the sense in the world. And if if more people could take on that type of mentality when it comes to reasoning, we could learn a lot much more about each other and all kinds of things. We could go very far. And, communication is just superb. Superior.
And I appreciate you saying the word reason. I know that maybe Caribbean talk. I've been around some Caribbean people, and instead of saying let's talk, they'll say let's reason, which is very interesting to me because from a American standpoint, we don't have these reasonable conversations. And that's what I would like to do today. I would like to reason with the
It, it,
family.
it it's important. I'm glad you pointed that out, right? Because when you're talking, you're really just trying to get your point across, really and truly. But when you're reasoning, there's a discussion. Like there's an open mind. It's transfer of, what I mean? That's what I
That's
think.
beautiful. Yeah,
Let's jump
me
into your
too.
PowerPoint, bro.
Please. So, this video is called Jesus Was Real, and we're going to try to find some historical confirmation. Next slide, please. So, I am a bibliophile. I know you've heard of every other file in the world, but you're probably not familiar with a bibliophile. It's somebody who's in love with books. And the book of today is called Jesus, Last of the Pharaohs, written by Ralph Ellis. Ralph Ellis is an archaeologist who this is his life's work. He has gone to extreme extents and he studies this every day, day in and day out. And I appreciate when people do that. I'm not one of those people, but I appreciate when people do that. And Arthur Ralph Ellis claims that Jesus was the last Egyptian pharaoh. I'd love to explore that thought with you.
Let's do it.
Okay, next
Let's
slide.
do it. I'm sorry.
So, Cleopatra was the last in the succession of Hebrew Ptolemy kings. Although she is considered to be the last of the Egyptian pharaohs, if I can just meditate on that for just 2 seconds, I know a lot of black people were so crazy about Egypt, but we only studied at a surface level. And if you ask Egyptologist black person who was the last of the Egyptian pharaohs, they don't necessarily know. I've never come across that person. Um, and prior to reading the book and going over his work, I didn't necessarily realize it was actually Cleopatra, and that's why she's famous.
Mm, that's interesting.
I think the next slide goes a little bit deeper into that. I might be mistaken. Okay, here it is. This is the official. This is from thoughtco.com in an article titled Biography of Cleopatra, Last Pharaoh of Egypt. So this is confirmation outside of the book. It reads Cleopatra was the ruler of Egypt as Cleopatra the 567, the seventh Philopator. She was the last Ptolemy she was the last of the Ptolemy dynasty of Egyptian rulers and the very last pharaoh of Egypt, ending dynastic rule of some 5,000 years. So Egypt was in power and had power of its own affairs for 5,000 years, and she's the very last ruler of Egypt. Um,
That brings some.
what say you?
That just brings up so many questions on its own. Um, Number one, I guess one of my first would be, and forget you don't have to have an answer for me, but is she the only female pharaoh?
Now there were other female pharaohs. One of the most famous is Hatshepsut, but Hatshepsut had pretended to be a man. That's why a lot of times when you see the pharaohs with the chin strap, it's a no pun intended, it's a strap on. It's not really facial hair. It's just something to make them look masculine.
Interesting.
Now, right, right.
It's
But now, just to spill the beans with the rest of the family, the good brother Dre and I, we're going to interview the guy who wrote this book. And what we're doing is kind of drafting, refamiliarizing ourselves with the content and then kind of getting some questions ready for Ralph when he comes on a platform. And I think that's probably going to be one of the most interesting ones as well. So for the listening audience, though I may not have the answer, just to give you an idea of what we're doing today, we're going to get those answers for you, family. So definitely you got to tap in, stay tuned.
ready for the next one.
Okay, please and thank you. Ptolemy the 15th Caesar, nickname Caesarion, also known by the nickname Little Caesar. He he was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Hold on, Crumb. You just said it was Cleopatra. Now you're
Right.
saying it's Little Caesar. What's really going on?
Oh,
Reigning with his mama Cleopatra from
ooh,
two from the 2nd of September 44 BC until his death on the 12th of August 30 BC. Then as sole ruler until his death. The historical fact shows the last pharaoh of Egypt was Ptolemy the 15th, who was nicknamed Little Caesar. So now that it's jogging my memory. Usually, what you'll have is a co-regent. If the next in line who's born to rule, if he's too young, all right, the king is born and he's 2 years old and his daddy died. The mama's going to rule beside him as the co-regent, and then the child, when they get to a whatever age, then they can take the throne for themselves. Most of the time, outside of Egypt and inside, we're going to see where that's the case. And this is of no exception. The king is born, the pharaoh's born, but he's too young to rule. So his mama is the custodian until he gets of age. And that was the story of Little Caesar. So technically, she was the last official ruler that we all know and love. But she did have a son who was supposed to be the next ruler, and he kind of made it to that point, but he kind of didn't. And we're going to explore that story.
So
Next
next,
slide,
right?
please. And if you have anything to add or anything, just jump on in.
No, I mean, I'm I have a burning question, but it really I don't think it has any. Well, it might. Why did this empire die right then?
Because there was another faction who was jockeying for power. That was known as the Great Roman Republic, led by Julius Caesar. So once this ruler fell, that country was acquisitioned by Rome. Rome's like, all right, you're no longer independent. You're now a Roman annex or a Roman state,
Okay, okay.
kind of like America did with Puerto Rico, or
Like they're
maybe
about
like
to do,
America did.
like they're about to do with Greenland.
Ooh, brother, are you familiar with the story of Hawaii?
No, no, I'm not.
Ho-
Like,
Hawaii, they had a a queen. They were ruled by a black woman, and she was a queen. And then Americans, which were just basically colonizers, they came over, they dethroned the queen, and they just made Hawaii the 50th state or something like that. And to this day, a lot of Hawaiians don't like Americans or whatever like that because they know their history intimately, and instead of amalgamating with society, the whole integration bit, they decided to kind of live on the beach. So if you ever go to Hawaii, you're going to see a large population of so-called beach bums, which is just the native Hawaiians who refuse to integrate into the dominant colonial society.
mhm. Okay, okay.
And that was kind
Okay,
of
I'm
what
gonna
happened
look.
with Egypt. That's kind of what happened with Egypt. They were absorbed by the dominant power.
All right, which was wrong.
Right, correct, yes, sir. Born in 47 BC, Caesarion was the son of two of the most famous parents in the world. The world, Craig! That was from Friday. Roman ruler Julius Caesar and Egyptian Pharaoh Cleopatra. So the head of state of Rome was Caesar, and the head of state of Egypt was Cleopatra. They come together, they have a baby, and this is little Caesar. We can
Mhm,
continue unless you have something to add.
mhm.
When Caesarion's mother, Cleopatra, proclaimed herself to be the reincarnation of the virgin goddess Isis, Caesarion became the son of a virgin mother goddess.
Okay.
Now, real quick on the whole virgin thing,
Uh-huh.
the definition of virgin then is different from the definition of virgin in 2025.
What are you talking about, bro?
So, a virgin in ancient times was a single woman, and that's all it meant. It had nothing to do with her intimacy. If she's unmarried, she's a virgin. If she's unclaimed or
That's crazy.
uh, right, yeah.
Just you know, sidebar. Um, we were talking about my grandfather in our family chat. Just memories and stuff. And one of the things that everybody was laughing at is, he was very colorful with his language. Um, and whenever a pregnant lady would walk by, he would, "Hey, virgin, how you doing?"
Teach.
So I just thought that was interesting. I'm sorry.
It, I I pulled up the AI overview. If I could just read maybe a sentence or two.
Please.
So according to Skynet, which is my affectionate term for AI, I'm sorry. Are you familiar with Skynet?
I am not. I use our Grok.
Well, Skynet was the AI from the movie Terminator,
Oh, okay.
the rogue AI that wanted to kill everybody, and Arnold Schwarzenegger had to kind of fight it. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, was fighting Skynet. So,
I get
so I was talking to Skynet. Skynet says yes, the word virgin originally had broader meanings, including unmarried, independent, or one in herself, not strictly meaning never had sex, especially in ancient cultures where deities and strong women like goddesses of Diana, Joan of Arc, were all called virgins to signify self sufficiency and freedom from male ownership.
So that would make sense to where Jesus was born to a virgin. Now we can accept that, right? You're telling me he's been born to some woman that's never had sex before? Then he's kind of batshit crazy. I'm just
And
saying. It makes sense. I like for stuff to make sense, bro.
it makes perfect sense. Yes, sir. Okay. So, yes, she says that, hey, I am not, I'm an independent woman. So, this baby was born of an independent woman. Let's move forward. When Caesarion's father, Julius Caesar, was elevated, let me see what I got on this side. I don't know why when I share it, it kind of jumbles like that, but on my screen, it's not jumbled. I have no idea why that is. But anyway,
So wait, say that again.
like on the share screen that we have, it says status of God, by and the are kind of on the same line.
Um,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why that is. On my screen, it's fine, but on this screen, but no worries. I just want to kind of complain. But anyway, when Caesarion's father, Julius Caesar, was elevated to the status of God by the Roman Senate, Caesarion was recognized once again as the son of God and the heir to God's kingdom, which is the Roman Empire. So we have on one side, you're born of a virgin, which is your mama, and now, you have divinity through her. On the other side, you're God's son because your father was elevated to the status of God by the people. So this is going to give you double holy validation, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, state simply, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Caesarion was also recognized as the son of God in Egypt after his mother named him all ruling pharaoh. Cleopatra declared him the king of kings at age of 13 during a donation of Alexandria ceremony in 34 BC. The name King of Kings, does that kind of ring a bell if
Does it
to
ever?
you?
King of Kings, Lord
And
of Lords.
right, this is the description in the Bible for Jesus.
Correct.
And for anybody who, I may be ruffling their feathers, this is not to be blasphemous or to discredit anything in the Bible. What we're doing is just looking at an archaeologist who has brought real life accounts with dates. There are no dates in the Bible, with real life accounts, and kind of paralleled them with these biblical narratives to see if we can find some type of connection. And I think it was just exactly what you were saying earlier. If you try to get me with the whole belief born of a virgin, it kind of gets a little weird. But if we can make this thing make sense, and again, if we can reason, then I may be more apt to, you know, hear you out versus you just got to believe.
Right, right. Like, and that word belief. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to take that out of my vocabulary. It's not. It's not easy. It's not easy. There's a lot that you know we depend on that word, that belief. We depend on belief for a lot of things as humans, and it really is an ugly word.
Mm.
It's an ugly, ugly word. Like it makes you move weird. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think no, I think it's definitely a crippling word where it gives us an excuse not to know, not
Mm.
to look.
Yes, yes, yes. 100%. That's a better way to sum it up.
I think yours was good as well. Next slide. The face of history suddenly changed when his father, Julius Caesar, was stabbed in the back or stabbed to death by his most trusted men. Octavian, the adopted son of Julius Caesar, swiftly seized power as the new Roman emperor. So you have a son and you have an adopted son. Now both are going to jockey or volley for power. I'm the king. That's my daddy. Oh, that's my daddy.
Right.
So we're going to see where there's an issue with who's going to be the king. Is it going to be your blood son, or is it going to be your adopted son? Now remember, the blood son, he's a kid, but Octavian, the adopted son, he's a grown man, which technically puts him uh, puts him in line to be the next ruler. Um, this is not perfect analogy, but did you see the movie Lion King?
Yeah.
After Musafa dies, Simba is supposed to be king,
Right.
but Musafa has a brother who's already an adult.
Right.
His name is Scar. Scar is like, I'm the king, not Simba.
That's right. Simba's not. He's not mature enough.
Bingo. And in the spirit of Steve Harvey, this is a family feud. Next slide. So, after Caesar's death, Cleopatra becomes romantically involved with a commander, with a married commander from Caesar's army. His name is Mark Antony. Mark Antony and Cleopatra parented three children, two twin boys, I'm sorry, a twin boy and girl, followed by a second boy. And I want to just acknowledge something right here. Um, I I grew up in Florida, and I got with this girl. She was she was fresh off the boat. Her
With
family
from
was from Trinidad,
Trinidad.
but she was a red dot, not like a black person Trinidadian. And my government name is Anthony, but they never called me Anthony. They called me Antony, no H.
Right.
Uh, and I always found it interesting that a lot of people in the Caribbean they don't pronounce the H.
Right. Right.
Um,
Hill
and in America, yes, sir.
instead of hill.
In, in America, I was picked on when I was a kid for speaking proper English, and My mom, I didn't complain or anything, but she overheard it one day, and she said, if they ever, is probably my older cousins, if they ever say anything to you about how you talk, you tell them you speak the King's English. So I was telling somebody in Florida, I speak the King's English. I said, okay, interesting. Because in the Caribbean, we don't speak the King's English.
We speak the
Do you know
Queen's
what they
language.
speak?
The Queen's language. What king? The
Amen.
Queen of England, right?
I
Yeah,
said, okay, 'cause we speak the Queen's English. I
right.
said, wow.
Yeah.
So this language where we say Anthony versus Antony, respectfully, I know according to King's English, we pronounce the H, but according to the Queen's English, we don't pronounce the H. Um, Jamaica, prior to, I think, don't get me the line, I think it was like 1967. Prior to 1967, Jamaica did not have independence, and they
No, I
were
think
a
it was
part of.
before that. I think it was before that. Don't get me the line either, but yeah,
Okay, yes,
67 is
sir.
a bit close.
Um, Keep me honest. Well, let me just double check. When did Jamaica? I really don't know. Gain independence. 62. Okay, keep me honest. Thank you, thank you.
And that was
So
still
prior to,
because I was born in '77.
not very long, not very long at all. So prior to 1962, anybody born in Jamaica had a British birth certificate. That's why you don't Jamaicans don't need I don't know about now, but prior to this, people of a certain age, they don't need a passport to go to England. Like I don't know if you need a passport to go to England, but the elders, they don't need a passport because they have a British birth certificate. And I've never been over there, but a lot of I believe, from what I understand, there's a significant Jamaican population in Great Britain.
Absolutely.
Okay, yes, sir, yes, sir. In addition to that, I think it's important to note when Marcus Garvey got deported, they didn't send him to Jamaica; they sent him to Great Britain
Mm.
because, well, we know Marcus Garvey had a British passport. Oh, I'm sorry, a British birth certificate. There was no such thing as a Jamaican birth certificate
Jamaican,
prior
yeah,
to,
makes
yeah,
sense.
when he was born. But just going into the Anthony, just super duper interesting.
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
just not even that, just that. But anyway, yeah. Next slide. I'm sorry. Since Caesarion was Caesar's son and the rightful heir to the empire, Cleopatra feared for his safety. When Octavian's mighty Roman army invaded Egypt, Cleopatra arranged for Caesarion for Caesarion's safe passage out of Egypt with her most trusted servants. This is super duper important because I'm about to connect the Bible. Next
Yeah,
slide.
please. I see where I kind of see where we're going.
I think so. Yeah, come on. Just like Caesarion, Jesus was the rightful heir to Judea, and Joseph feared for his safety.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
between me and you, when we talk about like the Bible, I have no problem with that. No problem at all. But I find it interesting that these historical events have such close parallels. And not even just this story, but several stories where you're going to see similarities with stories in the Bible. And not to challenge the Bible, but some of the stories predate the Bible. Uh, but yeah, let's continue. This story is parallel with Jesus because both were royalty, both were heirs to the throne. And just to make it very clear, in the biblical story, the king of Judea is Herod, and Herod wants to kill Jesus. And the story, well, according to the history, Jesus is Caesarion or Little Caesar, and Octavian, who's the king of Rome, wants to kill Caesarion. So Caesarion is Jesus, Octavian is Herod. This is the parallel.
Mm.
So this is Wikipedia, and the only reason I use Wikipedia, people don't use Wikipedia. It's not a good source. Wikipedia is a elementary source. Yeah, if we want to go to college, we're going to get into these bigger sources. But I like to keep it simple, and I say we just stick with the one plus one. So, according to Wikipedia, Jesus, King of the Jews. In the New Testament, Jesus is referred to as the King of the Jews. Because remember, Herod is the King of the Jews, just like old boy is the King of the Romans. Both at the beginning of his life and at the end. Oh, Crumb, Jesus was a carpenter. He was a sheep herder. Eh, when I googled Jesus, they said he was the king. Oh, Crumb, this whole thing with Cleopatra, you're reaching. Well, fine. Ralph Ellis may be off the deep end, but what about when Wikipedia says it? Wikipedia said Jesus was a king, not a peasant.
Right.
I don't know. What do
King
you
of
say, brother?
Kings, but
He was the king. Amen, church. Okay. Question: Who was the king of Judea? Who was the king of Judea when Jesus was born? Answer: According to encyclopedia.com, in an article titled "King of Judea, Herod the First," it reads: He later became cruel and tyrannical, executing three of his own sons
mm,
and his wife. This is Herod. He's a bad guy.
right,
According to the New Testament, Herod was the king of Judea when Jesus was born. So there, there you have it. This we haven't touched the Bible. According to sources that we've all read the Bible, they're going to say, based on the story, Herod is the king of the Jews. Now Jesus is born. Now he's the king of the Jews. So obviously that's going to create some problems for Herod. I think that's a fair statement.
enough.
And it's time for you to go.
Okay.
Okay. Jesus was a king and not just a carpenter. And the New Testament does not say he was. The New Testament doesn't say he was a carpenter. The New Testament, as we just read, well, we just read Encyclopedia Britannica, it says he was a king. It says that he was a tecton. This is the original word, which means he was an architect. So let's just kind of look into the word tecton according to Wikipedia. We're going to keep it simple. An artisan, a craftsman, an ancient noun common for an artisan, craftsman, in particular, a carpenter, a woodworker, or a builder. The term is frequently contrasted with an iron worker, a smith, a stone worker, or I don't know why they put it at the very end, or a mason. Jesus was a mason. Oh, he was a carpenter. Well, just like with the word virgin, you may think of it as one thing, but in the ancient world, when they said carpenter, the original word was tecton, meaning a mason. Is that a and I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't
Hmm.
have Masonic phobia. Masons are bad. I don't have the knee jerk reaction. But what do you make of this?
Oh,
Jesus being a mason.
when I read that, I don't think of um, skull and bones
Okay,
and I don't I think about a stoneworker, concrete worker.
it just seems like people in 2025 have somehow removed mason from stoneworker.
Right. And it just, I don't understand. So even like, even if you want to connect the underground empire called the Masons, right? They're builders. To me, that's the word is simple.
Yeah,
I got
and the official term is stonemason. But yeah, let's continue. So next slide. You can hear the Anglicism on the end of it, but Jesus was not a builder making houses and temples. He was a speculative mason or a speculative architect, meaning that he was a spiritual mason.
mm,
And instead of building a physical this or a physical that, he was building up men. One of the Masonic um, phrases, like the Masons tried to recruit me. And I'm like, why me? Oh, we make good men better. Jesus would build a man from a low state to a high state. A lot of people will say, not Jesus Christ, but Christ consciousness, and he would build you up to Christ consciousness. What do you think about that?
that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're building, you're a builder, right?
Yeah, big facts. And I think a lot of times, because remember, Jesus spoke in parables. So I think the Bible is teaching us to a small degree, maybe not to take the teachings as literal as they present themselves. This is a metaphor, if you will, when we say uh, plant the seed. We're not talking about planting a seed like a physical seed. We're talking about putting an idea in someone's mind. So when we plant seeds, we're not saying that we're farmers, or maybe we are, but not literally. Okay, next slide. Masonry is also known as craft masonry. Now, the word craft, it alludes to witchcraft, which is a form of magic. And to the right here, you're going to see the lectures of the 3 degrees of craft masonry. They don't call it regular masonry. It's actually called craft masonry.
Hmm,
Next slide.
interesting.
The great or grand architect of the universe, because we're dealing with masonry and building stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The grand architect of the universe is a conception of God discussed by many Christian theologians. As a designation, it is used within Freemasonry. It is also a Rosicrucian concept of God. The whole grand architect of the universe, when we're talking about that, that's a particular part of Freemasonry from the Rosicrucians or the the fellows of the Rosy Cross. Anyway, geometry and astronomy were linked directly to the divine for most medieval scholars and for many Christian scientists today. Since they believe that God created the universe after geometric and harmonic principles, to seek these principles is therefore to seek and worship God. Let's talk about that a little bit. Brother, have you ever heard of the Fibonacci sequence?
Yes.
Does it seem like there's a certain mathematical equation that life follows, like with the seashell and different
But not
things?
seem like it's it's been proven through the, like you said,
Yeah.
Fibonacci. Say it again. Fibonacci sequence.
Yes, sir.
I wish I could honestly like focus enough on it so I could get rich off of the stock market. Just be rich.
Well, you have a point, and I'm reaching here. I'm not teaching. I'm reaching. Maybe with the natural world being based off a mathematical equation, that's how the internet is based off what? What what controls what you see on the internet? What do we call it?
What controls what you see on the
It starts with an owl.
oh, the algorithms.
The algorithm. We understand the algorithm controls the virtual internet world
Right,
the
right.
same way a mathematical equation controls the world we live in. Or maybe not, maybe controls the wrong word. It dictates a lot of how things operate.
But here's the question
Um,
though:
Please.
was the math here before, or was the world here before?
Mm,
Which is following which is really the question.
which is a great question. What came first, the egg or the chicken or the egg? Um, and I think that's a great one to pin and to challenge Ralph with when he comes, just to get his perspective on that.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I do understand that geometry and harmonics and blah blah blah. So yeah, no, I'm sorry. Please continue. Cleopatra, the 567, the seventh, was identified with the Egyptian goddess Isis, who is equated with Aphrodite and Venus. During her sojourn in Rome, Caesar dedicated a golden statue of the queen in the Temple of Venus. And this is according to ars.org in an article titled Cleopatra the Great, the Last Power of the Ptolemaic Dynasty. So we're going to see also here at the bottom, it says Isis, goddess of magic. I'm sorry, let's go to us. So yeah, we're going to see where they've deified her and made her a god, or I'm sorry, excuse me, a goddess. And this is going to have direct implications on any of her children to make them deified as well. Uh, so far, what say ye?
Just I'm finding all this interesting, um, and I'm just eager to go more.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you and me for a little bit longer. So we already saw where Jesus is a tecton, he's a mason, but he's practicing craft magic. And in the Bible, and again, it's not to offend anybody, a lot of people said that he wasn't doing miracles. A lot of people say he was practicing magic. The whole water to wine, walking on water, this and this and that, blah, blah, blah. The
Well,
stories
that's
of the Bible. Please.
magic miracles, kind of one and the same, aren't they?
So now, not only according to the Bible, some people say you're doing magic or miracles, one and the same, but now your mother, according to history, if you believe that, your mother is the goddess of magic. I'll let the family decide for themselves. So let's continue. Great Mother Isis, the goddess of healing and magic. Wow, that's interesting because Jesus was a healer. Anyway, was was crucial to ancient Egyptian religious beliefs. She is known today by her Greek name, Isis. However, the ancient Egyptians called her Aset. Her name translates to Queen of the Throne, which is reflected in her headdress, which is typically a throne. This is according to EgyptianMuseum.org. This is not blackpower.com or we're questioning the validity of Jesus.org. This is just a regular site. But the title is Isis, Explore Deities of Ancient Egypt. And I got a couple, excuse me, I got a couple of pictures that say, Cleopatra the goddess, Isis the mother of magic, and she's also the mother of not only healing, but healing magic. Um, I think it was really interesting the way Jesus healed people. Do you remember when Jesus gave sight to the blind and how he did that? You're still muted.
Mike was off for a minute. But didn't he lay his hands over his eyes? Isn't that how he did it?
Yeah. Now, here are the weird details. This is the Bible now. This is the Bible. According to the Bible, Jesus spit on the dirt.
Oh
He
yeah.
spits on the dirt.
Oh
He
yeah.
mixes the dirt and his spit, and he wipes this spitty mud in the dude's eyes. That's how he gave sight to the blind. Listen, family, we listen, but we don't judge. I'm not judging for how he get it. Get her done.
Yeah.
However you got her done this.
The man can see. Thank God.
Right.
here's, here's how it happened.
Right. We listen, but we don't judge.
I know he was
But
happy about that spit, that dirt.
right, right. But just, looking into the magic aspect of it, it does seem a little bit magical. Well, I'm sorry, maybe not magical, but it seems a little bit less miracle-y. I'm sure that's not a word. And it seems a little bit more mystic. Let's say mystic. Maybe that's more respectful.
I like this thing.
Okay, let's move on. This magical connection further cements Jesus' royal bloodline as he was visited by three magi.
Magi.
Let, let,
What's up, magi?
yeah, so let's go to the next slide. Sure, absolutely. I think, you obviously on the right page. No pun intended. Magi, which is singular, and the plural is magus. A magus, or the magus, or a magi, is a member of a priestly caste of ancient Persia. Another word for magi is sorcerer. Because remember, Jesus did deal with the source, but
Hmm. Stop playing.
let's go deeper into it. Absolutely. Biblical magi, also referred to as the three wise men. Let's breathe right there, brother. Do you remember? Well, let me ask you this. Maybe I'm asking the wrong question. Were you raised a Christian?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay,
My
okay, good.
grandmother was a real praying grandmother. We were laughing about that this morning, boy. Don't prayer house like they had 11, sorry, well 11 and but one passed away at birth. So there were 10 children, and they didn't obviously didn't have a TV, right? There's so many damn children. Um, bro, when I tell you, when grandma went to praying, you better not have done anything for her to go to God about, because she's spilling all the beans. She's telling him everything. Real, real praying house. Real, real. Nobody can't
So,
convince me. I'm sorry. No,
no, I'm sorry,
no,
please.
nobody can convince me different. Um, like God is real. Prayer works. Um, Magic within all of that is real. Personal story. As a child, I was outside playing at my grandmother's house, or my grandparents' house, and that's the most spiritual place I've ever been to. Um, I was climbing on a tree, breadfruit tree, outside, young, young, probably about 5, 6 years old, you know, and fell. I was caught. before I hit the ground. There was nobody there that I couldn't see anyone who caught me, but I was caught and placed on the floor.
You going deep.
Yeah, it's just a personal experience. You know, dude, from 5 years ago, this was 40 some odd years ago, and it still sticks out in my memory like yesterday.
Mm. But let me ask you one more question.
Yeah, sorry.
Are you familiar with the three wise men?
That's what I was gonna refer to when you mentioned, you know, that's what I heard. That's what my spirit heard.
I I was raised with now, with all due respect, I wasn't like some genius or whatever or super duper Bible thumper. And even though I prayed, I love God, I got baptized, all of this stuff, I did have a problem reading the Bible. I didn't really understand the thous, and the old English was just, I think it's still kind of challenging, to be honest with you.
Right, 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 right.
So I didn't learn about the three wise men through like reading the Bible. I learned about the three wise men from the nativity scene.
Mm,
We talked about the three wise men during what holiday?
Christmas, right, right. That time of
Christmas.
year.
Yeah. This is the time of year where, my grandma and them would, sit us down and go through the story, not necessarily through the Bible, but she would set up the Christmas decorations. She'd set up the manger, baby Jesus, uh, I forgot his mama name, Mary and Joseph, but she would also set up those three wise men. This is
Yeah,
nobody preaching, no Bible. This is just kind of the decorations.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Those three wise men, they were always around.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go into the three wise men. So the biblical magi, otherwise known as the three wise men, were distinguished foreigners in the Gospel of Matthew and Christian tradition. They are said to have visited Jesus after his birth, bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They are regular figures in traditional accounts of the nativity celebration of Christmas and are important parts of the Christian tradition. We can move forward. So, first age of empires, Egypt and Persia. This is super duper important because these three wise men, where are they coming from? That's an important question. They're coming from Persia. Next slide. He was called the king of kings because those three wise men, they were all kings. Why are kings? Oh, well, they were kings from Egypt. They were kings from Judea. Why are kings from Persia coming to talk to you? Like, I'm a king. I don't bow to kings.
Right,
According to the Bible, oh, crumb, he was a carpenter. Fine, he was a carpenter. But if he's a carpenter, why are kings coming to bow to him?
right.
That's not very carpenter-ish. That's more like a royal blood. Oh my God,
And
it's a new king.
this is at birth. So right, this is not through adulthood where you can either that carpenter thing even comes about yet because this is at birth.
He's not even a carpenter yet.
Right.
I didn't think about that. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. So next.
He was called.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. He was called the King of Kings because he was really the king of all kings. The king of what? He was the king of Midgard.
Mid,
Crumb, you sound like Thor. What are you
what?
talking about, Midgard?
Yeah. What is that? Midgard. I never heard this one before.
um.
So like a midlife.
Well, okay, and me and you, please. Yeah, okay, Midgard. Fine, I'm being cheeky, but ha- did you watch the Avengers? Any of them?
No.
Okay, fair enough. I really didn't get into the Avengers as a kid. As a kid, I was only dealing with like X-Men, some more of the like name brand, like Spider-Man, Batman. The Avengers just wasn't banging when I was a kid. Avengers, for me personally, Avengers didn't really get big until the Marvel movie franchise came in. And Avengers was the first story of the Marvel movies, which I know there's like a bunch of Marvel movies now, but in the beginning was Avengers. And one of the Avengers was Thor. And Thor, he's a god. And Thor is from, I can't even remember the name of where he's from, but when he comes to Earth, he calls Earth Midgard. This is according to Norse tradition, which we got a little bit of that through the cartoons. Lord knows I don't study Norse tradition, but through the TV, we watched too much TV growing up, and that's kind of how I found out about Midgard. That's me personally. So this is according to msmcgill.canada. It says the term Mediterranean derives from the Latin Mediterraneus, meaning inland, Medius, meaning middle, terra, meaning land or earth. In Greek, Mesiogeos. The Mediterranean Sea has been known by a number of alternative names through human history. Mediterranean Sea, I'm sure you're familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
Mediterranean Sea, or the Mediterranean, is another name for Middle Earth. The middle of the earth was everything around the Mediterranean. And I'm not great with the geology or nothing, but I know where Egypt is. It's right on the Mediterranean Sea. Um, I think Italy and Sicily, um, Israel, these are all things on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, or the Middle Earth, or Midgard, as some would call it. Okay, let's continue on. So now these three wise men, because Jesus, he's over at Midgard, he's over at Middle Earth, he's over at the Mediterranean Sea. The three wise men are in Persia. So here's the question: is Egypt older than Persia? I'm sorry, is Egypt older, or is Persia? The question is not worded right. Anyway, answer. It says, because Persia is modern day Iran. Number one, it says Persia's older, 3,200. Then it says Egypt is the next oldest at 3,100. In my personal opinion, do they know the exact dates? Obviously not, because they're rounding it off. So basically, what we're going to say is Persia and Egypt, these lands or whatever, they were all formed around the same time.
Close
Close enough, right? But- because nobody officially knows, the documents were burned and blah, blah, blah. Next slide. He was the emperor of Rome. This is Jesus, or Little Caesar. He was the king of Judea. He was the pharaoh of Egypt. And he was the king of the Persian kings. And this right
clout.
here,
And this
that,
was
that
at
that's
birth.
that's this is at birth. That's a lot of clout. That's yeah. And again, saying King of Kings is one thing, but to go down the list like you and I are doing now, instead of just being a cute title, we can kind of like, oh shit, he was like an emperor almost,
Right.
because
Right.
he ruled several kingdoms.
Right. Right. And
Now,
now it's making sense. It's making sense. That's that's the most beautiful thing about what we got going on. Right? Making sense out of a lot of things that we grew up with. That it's just like, okay, well, believe this and believe that, but just now it makes sense. It just makes sense. I'm sorry.
no. I'm 100% with you. And if I can go back to the title of this video, Jesus was real. And I gave my little caveat, my warning in the beginning. Hey guys, we're not drinking the Kool-Aid. We're not asking anybody to get baptized. We're not saying do communion. We're just going over the archaeological evidence that parallels with the Bible. And a good teacher doesn't tell you what to see. They can only show you where to look. So for the listening audience, and for those who are going to catch this later, you be the judge. That's all we're saying. I think that's fair.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
So this map that we're looking at, if we look in the top right corner, it says Medio Persian Empire. This, at one point in time, was the Persian Empire, which encompasses all the kingdoms that Jesus ruled. And if the Persians ruled, the three kings of Persia came to pay homage and to say, "This is your empire, newborn. I know, hey, listen, well, I know you're a newborn. This is day one, Merry Christmas, whatever. But all of this is yours. And it's not because you said it. So now, this is you and me.
You can't even talk yet because you damn sure didn't say it.
Next slide. Historians confirm that Cleopatra sent Caesarion to India. There are no historical records of Caesarion's fate, despite false rumors of his capture. Cleopatra's most trusted servants, who traveled with Caesarion, became the boy's parent guardians. But who exactly were these parent guardians that she entrusted her son to?
Right.
Were their names Mary and Joseph by any chance?
Oh, shit. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
That's all. That's all I got. Okay.
Things that make you go,
Hmm.
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 So, if you read the raising of Lazarus in the Gospel of John, it is a standard third degree raising from any Masonic temple. You can share screen.
You said you can. Whoops. Oh,
Could you share screen
okay.
for the family to follow along? Next slide. No problem. If you read the raising of Lazarus in the Gospel of John, quiet as kept, it's a standard third degree raising from any Masonic temple. Remember, most of your Masons are Christians, and it's a Christian organization. And we've already said Jesus, well, tekton, which is carpenter, is really the original word, well, the current word for the original word Mason. So can we, now, okay, and according to Masonry, they make good men better. And Masons, and this is no disrespect to Masons, family, I am a clandestine Mason, meaning I'm an unofficial Mason. No one has deemed me a Mason. I'm a Mason in my mind. In my mind, he'll all. There was a song called "In My Mind" about. Did you hear that song "In My Mind"?
I can't. Can't.
It was this girl. It was a super weird song, but I'm not gonna lie, I did like it. Um, in my mind, I'll always be your girl. In my mind, Heather Heather Headley. Oh, I didn't know her name was Headley. Let me see if you can. Let me see if you can pick this up in the mic. I'm gonna put it on speaker. Essential. This song is called "In My Mind" by Heather Hadley. We'll just listen like the first lyrics or so. Oh, you said it's hard to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the echo cancellation on, so it's probably going to register as echo. But in the song, I'll try to sing it, which I know I'm going to be offensive. In my mind, I'll always be your girl. It's about a girl who got broken up with by a guy, and she still thinks she's the girlfriend. You're not the girlfriend.
You're not
And
in. Okay. Get out of here.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying she's not the girlfriend anymore. Get out of here.
Right, right. So my point is, family, I'm not a Mason. In my mind, I'm a Mason. Uh, but I don't pay any dues. I haven't went through any rituals. I don't know the handshakes. I've never even been in Masonic Lodge. At any rate, according to the Masons, from what I've heard, um, they raise you from the dead. If you go into the Masonic Lodge and become a Mason, the Masons are going to do a ritual where they raise you from the dead. You're going to be in a coffin. You're going to have to admit that you're dead or some weird ritual, and then they're going to raise you up, and now you're a Mason.
Wow.
So
Okay.
this is the same thing that happened with Lazarus. Lazarus, he he got raised up. If you join the Masonic Lodge, they're going to say that they raised you. That was the only point I wanted to make. Please forgive me for making it long winded.
All right. All right. All right. So
Okay,
next slide.
please and thank you. Not only was Jesus a Mason, but he was also royal. But he was also royal, and we have evidence of this because King Herod feared him. King Herod would not fear a carpenter, of course not, but he would fear a prince who had arrived in his realm, especially if he had better credentials, of course, than he did. Um, who was also hailed as the king of the Jews. So if you go into any church or cathedral pretty much around Europe, you're going to see an image of Jesus sitting on a cross. On top of him, you'll see a little sign saying Nazarani Rex. Now, the word Nazarani is the word where the word Nazi comes from. Nazarani Rex. This is Jesus the Nazarene, Jesus the Nazi, Jesus the Nazarene and King of the Jews. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that this guy was a carpenter and then in every church you put up a sign saying the guy was the King of the Jews.
Hmm.
So he was royal. He was a king. Next slide. So let's go into Jesus' bloodline. Go into the Bible a little bit. Mary, Mary, Maria, Mariamne, Mariamne, something like that. But anyway, she's the wife of Herod. It reads, Jewish princess, popular, a popular heroine in both Jewish and Christian traditions, whose marriage to the Judean king Herod the Great united his family with the deposed Hasmonean royal family, the Maccabees.
Hmm.
Now,
Maccabees.
and please let's talk about it.
No. When you say Maccabees, my stepfather, he kept on always referring to the Maccabee Bible. I don't know if you ever heard about this, or if you're familiar with this. Um, just apparently some other Bible. I don't know anything about it, but um, he would always say like that's the true Bible.
So, in America or the States, we don't really talk about the Maccabees. I grew up in Florida. A lot of my Caribbean brothers and sisters, they'll talk about the Maccabees in a heartbeat, but regular Black Americans born in America or the States, not so much. So we know the Bible has 66 books. What an interesting number. But anyway, the Bible has 66 books. Well, obviously, there are more than 66 holy books. One of those that's missing, or excluded rather, is the book of the Maccabees. we we know Jewish people to be disease ridden, dirty. If you look it up, one of the stereotypes about a Jewish man is that he's very effeminized. Remember, Jews brought you homosexuality. Well, not they didn't brought it to you. They brought you the popularization of it. In America, if you say that you were born gay, you got a Jewish battery in your back.
Hmm.
In the Talmud, there are more than seven genders, and right, just some weird stuff. And that's their religious book. So now the Maccabees, none of that. The Maccabees, and this is no disrespect to anybody. The Maccabees were some bad men. They were fighters. This is that same spirit you're going to see in Jamaica. This is the same spirit you're going to see with the fighting Irish. Remember, when the Jamaicans fought, they fought in the Highlands. When the Irish fought, they fought in the Highlands. These were Highlanders. The Maccabees were no different. These were the black Jews who fought they ass off. And obviously, it doesn't fit into the story of a peaceful people, and we're the pen is mightier than the sword, and peaceful protests, blah blah blah. The Maccabees weren't hearing none of that. So anyway, um, Miriam, she was the Maccabee bloodline. This is where you get the menorah, that seven candle situation. That was the Maccabees.
Mm.
These other Jews, I can't talk about the other Jews. Those other Jews, they talk like this, saying, "Hey guys, what's going on?" The Maccabees put some bass in your voice when you talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's from the Maccabee bloodline. She's a real Jew who don't take no ish. And a lot of people are going to tell you the reason only black people talk about the Maccabees. A lot of people will tell you the Maccabees were black. You're not going to hear no white people talk about. And this is not a black or white situation. This is just from my mouth to your ears, no further.
Well, we live.
A lot of
But
right. Listening audience, this is between you and me. And what I mean by that is, if you go into a black community, this message will be received well. You go into the Caribbean, maybe Florida, but if you go into the Catholic Church, or if you go into one of these, strictly 66 books in the Bible churches, they're not going to want to talk about the Maccabees. This is a black conversation that mostly only black people will be comfortable having. As we know, they took the book out, and they took it out because obviously it don't make them feel good, and they don't like it, even though the menorah comes out of that book. I digress. So yeah, she comes from the Maccabee bloodline, and she helped legitimize her husband's power. The only reason Herod has power is because he married one of those Maccabee girls. Next slide. While Caesarion fled from Egypt with his parent guardians, Cleopatra and Mark Antony's three children were placed in the care of Mark Antony's wife. After suffering a crushing defeat against Octavian invading, I'm sorry, let me start over. After suffering a crushing defeat against Octavian's invading Roman army, Mark Antony committed suicide by falling on his own sword. Now, again, I speak the king's English. I don't speak the queen's English. I never heard the term falling on your sword. However, again, a lot of Caribbean, British, Ethiopian, a lot of those people are familiar with the term falling on your sword. Um, I just never heard that growing up. And until I started speaking, I was speaking with this one dude who was in Great Britain by way of Jamaica. He's Jamaican, but they moved over to Great Britain, and he said, "Yeah, we're talking about Haile Selassie." And he said, "Yeah, I wouldn't recommend falling on your sword." I'm like, what are you talking about, falling on your sword? It's like, oh, giving up, just quitting. Like, oh, okay, well, I never heard that. Americans don't necessarily speak like that. Um, but I must admit, our family in the Caribbean has a closer connection to the culture than in America or the States. I have to be honest with you, I'm very Americanized, and I'm,
So am I.
please.
So am I. Very Americanized. Super Americanized.
Well,
Since the origination.
you're closer to the culture than I am.
Okay. Closest to Jamaican culture.
which is a reflection of the original culture. The Caribbean culture is a reflection. The Caribbean family is closer to the original culture than us in America, and I
I,
think we've
I
we've had
guess
this
so.
conversation several times. And I'll say this: super duper goofy. I read an article maybe 6 years ago where scientists say, "Hey, it's probably good if you take your shoes off at the door before going into the house." Yeah, for you it's laughable because you have culture. For me, as an American, I never knew about taking your shoes off at the door. We nobody in my family ever did that. I didn't experience that until I moved to Florida, and a lot of my Caribbean friends was like, you got to take your shoes off at the door. We don't wear outside shoes in the house. That it's not civilized. What say ye? Where did your family stand on that?
No, that same way. Very true. That's how we. That's how you grew up. Um, no, but nobody walks in your house. It's complete disrespect if somebody walk in your house and not, take your shoes off. Like, what? You're gonna bring all of that crap from outside into my house?
Which, looking back on it, oh, am I still here? Have you lost me?
No, something
Okay.
glitched for a minute, but we're
Um,
good. I'm not sure what
okay.
it
Yes,
was.
sir. Yes, sir. I caught that glitch as well. So looking back, it's a no brainer. It's a very clean and practice to take your shoes off at the door. Don't track whatever's outside into the house. And I know for you, I noticed that you smiled because, right, but
You're breaking up. Breaking up. Something's going on. You're freezing.
should
Something's
I leave
going
and come
on.
back?
Um, is it the connection?
No, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like I'm clear now.
Yeah. You're clear now.
Nope.
No, you good. You're good.
It just came back.
You're good. On my side, you're good.
Okay, okay. Well, it would seem as if not wearing shoes in the house is a no brainer. Very clean, very hygienic. It speaks to the nature of hygiene to a group of people. But in America, we had to do a whole
Why is it breaking up now? You had to do a whole what?
scientific.
Okay. Okay. Something's going on with our connection right now. I don't understand why is it doing this.
Let me. I'm gonna close out some of my windows.
Stick with his family. We're just going through, um, going through this book, this PowerPoints, just so Crump can get. He's just preparing for this for real big interviews have coming up. So just bear with us, family. Okay, looks like you're back.
I still hear it a little bit, but I'll let you decide what you like to do.
No, you're back. You're back. You're back. You're good. Actually, I'm gonna ask you for a quick break. I want to run upstairs and grab a snack myself. Getting kind of hungry.
I'm sorry, you said a quick one. Oh, there we go. Looks like we're back.
Oh, okay. I just want to grab a quick snack real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, take your time. Take your time. Oh, in the audience, the song is stuck in my mind. Okay, there we go. Yeah, in my mind by Heather Hadley, whatever. Now that song is stuck in my mind. Somebody in the audience got to talk black to me. I know somebody has heard that song before. In my mind, I'll always be your girl. Super funny song back in the day. Super duper funny. Heck, there we go again. Okay, we're back. Okay. But yeah, listening audience, somebody got to talk black to me about that song. I'm not going to let it go. um, there it goes again. I don't even know if the family can hear me. Hopefully you can. But I'm over here sweating like a pervert. If anybody hasn't noticed, um, I be drinking hot tea. And when the brother gets back, I want to talk about hot tea as a culture that we don't have in America, but it's very strong, not only in the Caribbean, but Great Britain, Africa, places like that. Tea time, whole situation over there.
Sorry about that, brother.
Oh no, you're good. How's my connection? Still choppy? Okay.
Okay, I'm with
How's connection? It still sounds choppy on my side. How's it sound on your side?
you. It sounds good on my side.
Um,
You,
yo, what do you think about the fact that we had to do a whole scientific study to say don't walk in the house with your shoes on?
man, it to me it speaks to the fact of controlled controlled civilization. Um, and I'm trying to figure like the way to put it right. It's almost like okay, take this good civilization, teach them how to think, teach them how to move, teach them how to walk and talk. But then we forgot to teach them how to keep the germs from outside. Make sense? Okay.
And I would like to say at this point in my life, it should be common sense, but it speaks to the how strong and pure the culture is in some parts of the world and how weak it is in others. Do we need a scientific study for this? In hindsight, I would say no, but apparently in America you do.
Interesting.
Let's and also another aspect of how Americans lack the culture that we're going to see in other parts of the world. Africa, great.
We're breaking up
I can hear it.
again.
Yeah, the connections definitely choppy. I I closed the windows and I reset everything, but I can still hear the choppiness.
Hold on, somebody's watching on what's it called? I mean, we got some comments over here. Um,
Let's take some comments.
Actually, this is definitely a Jamaican. Um, she says, "No shoes on my feet at all unless I'm coming to America." Of course, America's with the KKK. Um, and then it said, "Please take down that Caucasoid." When we had up the picture of Jesus.
Fair enough. um, I,
I didn't hear anything you said. Was chopped. Maybe you should go out and come back in.
yeah, I was saying I can hear the choppy connection.
Yeah. So what you saying? Maybe we should. You want to go out and come back in? Reset.
Sure.
Okay. Putting the Caucasoid back up.
I still hear it.
Good on my side.
Okay, there it goes. There it goes. We're back. Nope, there it is again. It's gone.
On my side, you're good, bro.
Okay.
Until you started talking. As soon as you started talking.
Um, would you like to close it out and we'll just come back another time?
um, we can if you want to. I mean, yeah, we are an hour and a half in. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and close it down and we revisit. Come back at this. All right. Peace and blessings.